The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Friday, April Fool's Day 2016 are currently trading with gold at $1,221.75 an ounce, silver $15.04 an ounce, Texas crude $38.34 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 416 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 2001. Same-sex civil unions become legal in the Netherlands. The first country in the world issued civil union licenses to gay and lesbian couples. Today in history. In recent news, some corporate April Fool's pranks went not so well this year. Yahoo's Inc. news service published an article reporting that all the Trader Joe's more than 450 grocery stores would be closing in 2017. Trader Joe's fans went to Twitter with mad tweets, even though at the end of the article it stated that it was clearly a joke. A spokeswoman for Trader Joe's said that the chain had nothing to do with it. And Google, who has been quite active in pranking customers for the last decade on this date, added a Gmail mic drop button to their Gmail services, which automatically sent an animated image from the Minions movie showing the character Bob dropping a microphone. Many users were unhappy after accidentally pressing the button, sending the joke email in reply to more serious ones. A CIA K-9 unit conducted a routine training exercise with law enforcement officials at a school district in Loudoun County, Virginia, during spring break, during which explosive material was inadvertently left by the CIA in one of the school buses used in the exercise, which now appears to have unknowingly carried students for 2 days while the explosive material sat underneath the hood. Loudoun County Public Schools officials stated that the bus was in service on Monday and Tuesday, made 8 runs totaling roughly 145 miles, carrying 26 students. The explosive material was discovered during a routine maintenance job Wednesday afternoon. Why the fumble? Apparently, a container holding the explosives was hidden inside the engine compartment during the K-9 training, of which a portion of it fell from the container into the engine compartment and was simply overlooked during the recovery. And though the CIA is assuring the public that the material posed no immediate danger, the exact nature of the material is not being released by request of the CIA, to ensure, I'm sure, that a compromising of training techniques is not made public. Loudoun County Public Schools, county law, and fire officials and the CIA have announced this particular training program has been suspended until a thorough review of all procedures is completed. This is Rick Brody with your lowdown for April 1st, 2016.
No one had a bad trip. It was all very good. No one had a bad trip. It was all very good. Nope. It was all very good.
breath in my lungs is stripped away. Like a liquor in my throat as the burning and the choking rips away. I can smell you on my skin like a scent of a memory drifts away, but you drift away.
And good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're listening to us here on the Logos Radio Network and its affiliates. This is Be Brave Radio, and we're coming to get you live for the next 3 hours from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Time, whether you're listening to us on radio affiliates such as 89.1 FM in Austin, Texas, via your smartphone or TuneIn, via your smartphone through the TuneIn app, or on your computer through your PC or Macintosh via logosradionetwork.com. And this is the week of April Fools. And Elizabeth, why don't you take it away?
Hi. Well, happy weekend, everybody, and happy post-April Fool's Day. It is Saturday, April 2nd, and so happy to have you guys all tuning in today as you're going about your amazing, hopefully happy day. Anyway, we are just past April Fool's, and perhaps you noticed some shenanigans showing up here and there, and I think one of the most major things that affected Austin recently was the Austin Chronicle, playing a little bit of a joke on everybody and all the local residents here, with the front page news, implying that, our beloved POTUS, President Barack Obama, is going to be a resident in Austin. And I think several of us groaned when we saw the headlines of that.
Well, it's interesting is that the Chronicle is a very polarizing particular newspaper.
Yes,
and the fact that they figured out how to piss off their actual core audience. If you look at the makeup of Austin, and the change happened about 15 years ago when the Californians came. Austin used to be these old school, progressive, not necessarily California partisan Democrats, but progressive liberals, sort of what the Bernie Sanders people are actually grappling towards. And the fact they don't like these Californians coming in because they were kind of doing their own thing. They had liberal views of social items such as gay marriage or drugs or whatnot, or in live music. And they see all these Californians that came in that they want all their government subsidies, specifically corporate welfare, and they're driving the cost of living up. And so people, the locals here are hating it because they notice what's happening. They notice the cost of living is going through the roof. They're losing what made Austin a cool place to live in the first place, such as all the live music venues being demolished for condos.
Well, I know that I actually escaped California to come here to get away from all of that. I'm a little different than a lot of the people coming in. I'm much more of an independent conservative and libertarian and whatnot, and I am much more aligned with, Texan ideals. And, when I saw the headline of Barack Obama, thinking of moving here, even though it was a joke, thank heavens, I just thought, oh gosh, please no, we don't need more of that. It's so funny because Ben Farmer, who's on the show later on with his own show, actually made a comment on social media, and he did this great quote about Austin's population explosion coming of the wrong sorts coming here, and we definitely have quite a few coming every day, saying that's it, I'm running for governor, building a wall, and California's paying for it. Let's put a wall up against the Californians coming in.
Well, there's actually two things that we can actually discuss. First of all, like you just said, it's a little snapshot of the immigration picture as a whole. You have most Californians come over here and bring their Californian lifestyle and their California way of economics here instead of, what was immigration? It was a melting pot. They're not melting. They're more like invading.
Yeah.
And
agreed.
so the same policies that bankrupted California, they're bringing over here. For example, look at downtown. Even 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago, there weren't all these high-rise condominiums. Yesterday, I counted 20, just a rough count, more or less. There's whole areas of downtown which were just green space, or they were the old power plant, water treatment plant. Now they're high-rise condominiums and office buildings.
And it never seems to stop. I've been hearing all these wonderful stories about where I live currently and about how it used to be just such a green belt, and now there's all these, all this construction, all this traffic and what have you. And then again, I'm seeing, a lot of my West Coast friends and people that weren't even necessarily my friends now suddenly announcing, oh, I'm looking into real estate in Austin.
We're full.
And you know what? And it's so funny because one of my friends tagged me and said, hey, is Austin the new place to be, Elizabeth? And I wrote back and I said, shh, stop it. Don't tell. Go away. No.
Austin's yesterday's news. It's not fashionable to move here anymore.
Oh.
And it's really polluted with California residents.
It is. No,
I would say it's okay to come to Austin if you're like-minded, if you're liberty-minded, if you're an independent thinker, then come on down. But
how many guns do you own?
Well, shush. Now, wait a minute. I'm very private about that. I don't do selfies with my guns, or whatever. But you know what? I think that is really the bigger picture as well with America is it's the conversation about acclimatizing to where you enter in. It's like I've always had this sort of secret fetish of wanting to move to Japan. And let me tell you, I've been there and I love it there.
Pre or post Fukushima?
But let me tell you, that's a whole other conversation. But let me tell you, if I really did properly move there, I would learn the language. I would acclimatize in. I would love to, work and live in the old hotels. And I mean, that's the whole point. It's one thing to come in and be a part of it. And yes, you can keep all your cultural ideas if you like, but also, work to fit in.
Don't forcefully impose it on others.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that there's a big situation going on currently. I think it's on the front page of the Drudge Report right now, where there's a lot of protesting going on in the streets and what have you over in France and in Germany. And people are literally coming in and yelling things like, we're going to conquer you. We're going to take you over. With all this help, we shall conquer you. Literally is what is being yelled in the streets right now. It's like, no, this is not about, there's a concept that says hajra. And hajra means jihad through immigration. It's like, no, peeps, come on. Let's all just be friends and let's figure all this stuff out.
And you wonder why Trump, and you wonder why Trump has a point says just vet everybody. If you're cool, we'll let you in. But the thing is,
that's what the liberals don't hear is that little concept.
Well, they don't also realize that there's a third of the country that can't find work.
Well, there's 90 million out of work right now.
Out of 300 million people.
Yeah, so that is a little bit of an issue. Absolutely.
And no, that does not count children or the retired elderly. That's 90 million people that are ready for the workforce, 18 to 60?
Well, there's also a bunch of jobs that are going, and now that Bernie Sanders supporters are all talking about, taxing the 1% and the upper elites, and it's like what they don't realize is, first of all, if their plan really was to be, thrown at us, if that's really what ended up happening, if you actually do the math, they'd run out of the money to take care of all these propositions that people are putting forward. And Bernie has actually come out and said himself that it's not just the 1% that would be taxed; it would be the rest of us. In fact, I believe from the math that has been done, it would be about a 10% point or 10.5% difference of what we would all be charging. You know what? I don't know about you. I can't afford it.
Across the board. No. That includes people that are making minimum wage. Julie Borowski actually made a really good video where she demonstrated this. And she even showed someone that makes minimum wage, 40 hours a week at minimum wage, that's $15,000. They would be taxed about $1,000 to $1,500 more.
Yeah, well, and here's a guy who's pretending to be anti-establishment, but yet he's absolutely come out and has said that he will endorse Hillary. Not only that, but also, he's for drones. He's for mandatory vaccinations. There's some real issues here that I know it's sad because I know there's a lot of people that are anti-establishment and they're so hopeful because they're so afraid and they're so desperate. But, look, it's the way I'm feeling about Trump as well right now. Trump is not our Lord and Savior and neither is Bernie, you guys. And unfortunately, we're being filtered into stuff that it's like, oh, I don't know. How'd you like to be executed? You want the gun? You want the guillotine? You want the hangman's noose, And unfortunately, none of these peeps are really at the end of the day, even once they're elected, gonna assist us with what we're hoping, with what we need right now.
There's a great meme on Facebook that has a picture of just about every candidate. Yeah. Well, it leaves off the LP guys. They should be included, of course.
They should be, yeah.
And it says, none of these guys are going to make your life better. Make your life better for yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to vote, folks. You don't have to pick the lesser of two evils. Just abstain if you don't support anyone genuinely, if no one truly represents you.
And what I love is that Ron Paul literally has just come out saying, you know what, there needs to be an option on the ballots that says none of the above.
Nobody for president.
And this is the conclusion of the first segment of Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network. We will be back right after this short break with Leland Freeman, John Bush, and Elizabeth Egan Everett. Stick with us.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
And welcome back to Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network as we process through a little bit of April Fool and hangover, some minor technical issues, but I think we got that taken care of. And we appreciate you listening to us from now until 2 p.m. Central here on the Logos Radio Network, whether it's through our radio affiliates across the country, including 89.1 FM here in Austin via the TuneIn app for your smartphone or tablet, or if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, stream it on your PC or Mac. And we are brought to you by Brave New Books, Nature's Pure Organics, Hill Country Home Improvement, Burke Superfoods, Cabo Bob's Burritos with 2 locations here in Austin. They have nothing but all natural ingredients, whether you go to the South location on Ben White Boulevard, right next to the Walmart, right before Congress Avenue, or on the North Drag location, right next to the University of Texas at 2828 Rio Grande. All natural ingredients, sugary sodas, no high fructose corn syrup. They're non-GMO corn tortillas, and the fact that they even baked they baked the corn tortillas or the flour tortillas right in front of you. And we also have a new sponsor to our show as well. John, take it away.
Yeah. One note on Cabo Bob's. So I've been working at the store lately, and there's a lot of fast food and fried food and a lot of Chinese restaurants and like Vietnamese. And a lot of it is just not very appetizing. And I've gone through transformation with what I eat. Like Chick-fil-A was my last holdout on fast food because it was so good. Their chicken
and they're very polite.
So good. They're polite. My pleasure.
But they're not open on Sundays.
No, it's not. It's not your pleasure.
And everybody seems so happy.
Well, we also have the fellowship.
We got the Freedom Fellowship going on right now. We'll talk about that here a little bit later in the program. But finally, Chick-fil-A started bothering my stomach, and I didn't want it to be so because I loved it so much. But I think my system kind of shrieks at that. So my options are limited here. So basically, I've been exclusively eating Chipotle and Cabo Bob's because they both have fresh ingredients. Chipotle does the non-GMO thing too. However, even though Chipotle is this big national chain, they have so much recognition, I can say that having eaten both of those consistently, literally, it's the only 2 spots that I eat at around here, Chipotle is frequently not fresh. And every single time, whether I show up 20 minutes before close or at the peak of lunch, every single ingredient in the Cabo Bob's repertoire is 100% fresh and tastes amazing. I can't say that about Chipotle. Sometimes it's like the tomatoes are going out the door.
Mind you, I do have to say that I have a feeling, I think it's actually about the location you're speaking about, because I used to go to them a lot in California, and they were always really on it and really fresh. And I have noticed here that this location, they're always like, go away, get out.
They're not Second Amendment friendly at Chipotle, but they are Second Amendment friendly at Cabo Bob's.
Yep, for sure. So that's Cabo Bob's. Check them out, CaboBobs.com. It's always popping. Great food.
Awesome.
Another sponsor we have is KeepKey. KeepKey is a digital Bitcoin hardware wallet that basically, if you're a big Bitcoin user and you want to keep privacy and make sure that hackers don't rob your Bitcoin, especially if you're holding a lot of Bitcoin, then you want to try out this new wave of hardware wallets. KeepKey is leading the way, and basically it's a small little physical device that easily fits in your pocket. It's maybe like a fifth the size of a cell phone or smaller. And basically it stores your private key. So for a Bitcoin transaction, there's a public address, which is like your checking account number. And then there's a private address. There's a private key, which is like the keys to unlock the address. It's like your password. So if you have the private key associated with an address, you have access to those coins. Well, if you keep that private key on your computer, or even worse, if a third party has access to that private key, it can be hacked, it can be manipulated. Cool thing about this hardware wallet is that private key, your secret passcode, the keys to access the Bitcoin on your public address, it never touches the internet or a computer. It always stays on this physical piece of hardware, and you sign the transaction from there. So if you're not into Bitcoin, then, that might be a little bit of technical stuff. But if you are into Bitcoin, this is definitely one of the most secure ways to keep your Bitcoin. Keep it away from the internet. Keep it away from hackers. Keep it away from the federal government and the FBI, like they're doing with the iPhone.
Well, apparently that they cracked the iPhone. They originally were going to subpoena Apple. Then they cracked the iPhone. They said, we don't need that. But there's actually larger implications of that. They can crack one iPhone in the iCloud. That means they can pretty much crack every iPhone. And Apple's kind of come out and said, well, we can't make things uncrackable. But that was the big deal about their encryption schemes. They said, this stuff is supposed to be so it turned out to be crap, but it's
yeah, but come on, that information has been out for many years. You can see McAfee talking about how he could break into it. I mean, again, this stuff is just getting more public, but they're usually about 25 years ahead in the private sector. But what you were saying, John, though, is if people don't know what Bitcoin is at this point, I really do suggest that you begin to learn, because Bitcoin seems like it hasn't been jumping the shark, that it isn't going away. It is something viable. And right now in a time which is extremely important for diversification, whether your money's in the stock market, which is, yes, okay, so we've been doing well, recently in the last couple of days, but let me tell you, it's going to go down again. As we understand, it's important to have silver, gold, and make sure that you've got a few Bitcoin. And definitely this idea of having a physical little wallet that you can carry around with you with the codes that you've memorized and hopefully do not forget, and maybe have them written down in a very separate location. Mm-hmm. But diversification is so super key right now.
Yeah, for sure. It's ethical money, which is what my wife calls it, because it's not
awesome.
Federal Reserve notes. Uh-huh. Every time you use the Federal Reserve notes, you're empowering that system. You're giving it value. People say Federal Reserve notes don't have value. If you believe so, bring them down here and I'll take them off your hands. But this is money that doesn't build out and empower a system that basically funds foreign wars of aggression all around the country. And on top of that, the cool thing is I got into Bitcoin for ethical reasons, for philosophical reasons as an anarchist, because it undermines the status quo of this monopoly money. But as an entrepreneur, I started actually using the currency in order to pay people that were writing stories for the Liberty Beat. And I found that, oh my God, its utility is absolutely amazing. Now, every time I use the legacy banking institution, whether it's paying off a credit card or doing a wire transfer or actually having to go to the bank, it just seems so old and archaic. Bitcoin is so much easier.
Well,
and faster
what's
for
your
everything.
but what's your take on the big boys dumping a ton of money into Bitcoin, such as what Goldman Sachs, American Express,
Well, that's
Visa,
concerning.
MasterCard?
I think they see value in it.
Well, they do, but I think
gonna have to
they're
join
also
or die,
well. I
basically.
think they're also though there are there's a lot of information where they're somehow trying to hack it or destroy it from the inside. I mean, look at what it's the same thing of what's happening with America is that
And
there's a decentralization from the inside.
But
and
it started off centralized, America. Bitcoin started off decentralized.
Yes.
And it has such a strong foothold through decentralization, whereby if you wanted to hack it, if you wanted to gain control to where you could manipulate the currency, you would have to have a significant amount of computing power, potentially 50% or more, in order to actually manipulate that. And thankfully, that computing power is so vast, it's like petahashes. I don't even know how many petahashes that it takes some serious computing power.
Oh, you mean like the NSA thing in Utah, which is liquid cooled by, was it well water or something like that?
Yeah, but they don't have SHA-256 ASIC chips. And in fact, if you
Wait, how do we know they don't?
We don't know, but they're not doing it.
Well,
I don't see any crazy
the
price
other
fluctuations or
interesting thing,
manipulations going on.
the other interesting thing is that the reward for mining Bitcoin with these miners with the SHA-256 chips is going to get halved. So what you're going to have is a lot of these miners shutting down because they don't see the incentive of mining and running for every dollar. Right now, for every dollar of electricity it's going, you're getting about 5 cents a Bitcoin.
So it's a true market. It's so close to a free market that it's an experiment. We actually get to see what a market looks like. So the miners, the people that run these machines, we have a ton of them sitting here not running because Austin electricity is too expensive to run them, and some of them are dated. But in order to run these machines and pay the electricity, you get rewarded in Bitcoin for running the machines that solve the transactions and that execute the transactions on the network. Well, the reward is going to be halved here in a year from 25 Bitcoins per block that's solved to 12.5. And what's going to happen likely is the fees associated with each transactions will go up. And they're going to go up from like a fraction of a penny to a few cents.
Well,
you don't have to pay a fee, but if you pay the fee, you're more likely that your transaction will go through in 10 minutes instead of 20 or 30.
Well,
compared to 2 or 3 days with the bank.
I can also see these banks and these companies, seeking to get in with those charges and those fees. It's like the way PayPal is, But what I love about it, and it's the same thing that I love about certain kind of, choices of spirituality, is that there's no intercessor. At least when you have that little physical wallet that you can take around with you, there's no sort of person standing in between being like, I'm your road to your money, or I'm your road to God.
That's not an approved transaction.
I'm going to decide on that, and I'm going to take a little bit off the top. So I do really honor that idea.
Financial sovereignty.
Yeah, so guys, get involved. I understand why, for me it was extremely complicated in the beginning to learn about it, but right now there are so many resources to really learn this stuff, and it is an easier road now. It is easier to get Bitcoin.
And we are coming up on a break on the second segment of Be Brave Radio. Stick with us. We've got 2.5 hours of the show left to go here on the Logos Radio Network.
Attention air travelers. Before you book your next flight, be sure you don't get stuck in the worst seat on the plane. I'll give you a hint. It's near the back. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, back with a tip from seasoned travelers after this.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
If you've flown lately, you know the skies can be far from friendly. There's baggage fees, jammed overhead bins, and shrinking legroom. And of course, choosing the right seat is always a challenge. But a survey of 1,000 flyers by Skyscanner, a flight comparison website, finds one seat is the absolute worst, 31E. It's a middle seat in the back, near the toilets. Of course, where there's a loser, there must be a winner, and that award goes to seat 6A. Why? Seasoned air travelers know the first few rows get to deplane first. Plus, 6A comes with a very nice window. Happy flying! I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
You're listening to the Logos Radio Network at logosradionetwork.com.
And welcome back to Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network. I'm Leland Freeman. I'm joined by Elizabeth Egan Everett and John Bush. Switching gears, last night on April Fools on Fox Business, the Libertarian Party had their first national debate hosted by John Stossel. Was it the three candidates were John McAfee, Austin Peterson, and Gary Johnson.
Leland, why are you doing that?
Because he's the Libertarian Party's Mitt Romney.
Is he okay? So explain that, please, for our listeners. Teach us.
Okay, so Gary twice before has tried to run for president, and last year he originally tried to run as a Republican. He actually participated in one of the debates. Then he decided to switch to the Libertarian Party. But the thing is that he doesn't have a spine, and the fact is he doesn't even have people to manage.
Flip-flops?
He flip-flops. He doesn't have people manage.
Not even a libertarian.
Isn't Austin Peterson the only one who's actually supposedly libertarian?
He's a libertarian who rejects the non-aggression principle, the idea that we shouldn't initiate force against those who haven't done us any harm, which is the core tenet, along with self-ownership, for the libertarian philosophy. And that's not cool. And I guess he says that we have to he calls it like anarchist pacifism and associates it with being like hairy-fairy, hippy-dippy. And he says sometimes to run a government, you need to force people to do things, which is antithetical libertarianism. That being said, however, during the debate, he certainly was the most articulate of the philosophy of liberty, Rothbardian, so on and so forth.
Well, wasn't he also Judge Andrew Napolitano's former producer on Freedom Watch on Fox Business?
Yeah, but libertarian, that does not make him. I tried to say that in a little backwards way.
Yeah, I mean,
it would make him, that does not.
How did McAfee come off? Because I listened to a couple of McAfee's interviews on the Crypto Show, and he's just an amazing personality.
He came off well. He was a straight shooter. I saw this thing about last night, early morning. I was watching some Donald Trump videos because he's just so entertaining to me. Sometimes I'll just put Donald Trump on YouTube and have a field day. And there was this cool thing analyzing his speech, and he speaks. He, out of all of the candidates, speaks basically at the lowest level. It's like a fifth grade level. Or something.
However, he's also seen to speak as the most honest. Now, whether you like what he says or not, that's
those are tied in.
Discerned. But at least he is radically honest. Bombastic brawler. And yes, sorry, continue.
And I was saying that's a good thing because right now the voting public doesn't want some suit that speaks over their head like Ted Cruz does. Bernie Sanders had the highest level.
Well, they're conniving.
Of speech.
They're conniving.
But I could tell that John McAfee spoke like your neighbor, like your buddy, like your drinking buddy. And Austin Peterson was really articulate, but he sounded kind of like an intellectual hairy-fairy, like a Ted Cruz. But I could tell McAfee was really a straight shooter, just talking from the heart. I think that resonates.
There's something to be said about actually saying something versus having a lot of words come out and nothing's really said. And you're exactly right. People are turned off from this dated style of just getting on your soapbox and saying a bunch of things that really don't mean anything. For example,
let's double speak as well, where it's like, what is it? The Pope coming out saying we need to use weapons of love. I mean, excuse me? Are you flipping serious? But sorry, I didn't mean to jump to a different, but no, I did like Austin saying, okay, we're here to take over our government, to leave you alone. I mean, that's really what it's about. It's like, leave us alone. We are mature beings. At least most of us are. I think if anything, I wish everybody was, was almost made to watch that show last night because, I would love if the mainstream candidates actually paid attention because they might actually learn something, Now, but however, the topics were a little weak. How about talking about the drones? How about talking about NSA? Are we going to talk about that next week? When they do part 2? I hope so.
Yeah. I thought Gary Johnson just comes off as completely unlibertarian. He doesn't understand the philosophy. And the unfortunate thing is he will likely get the nomination because the LP base feels like he will garner the most votes because he's the most appealable.
So that's two in a row. And then
two lame. Less than a percent.
So it's Gary Johnson 2 years in a row. And then before that was Bob Barr, which I helped my
pushover.
Bob Barr.
Yeah, Bob Barr. Yeah, was it
not a libertarian?
The guy who wrote the Patriot Act.
Michael Badnarik is the only good libertarian presidential candidate in recent years. He's back in Austin, by the way. We'll have him on the program soon.
Well, McAfee, but he's not going to get the nomination, is he?
McAfee's not very libertarian. He's not very philosophical or political, which is actually a good thing. He's a businessman, and he's more like a Trump, actually, to be honest. And he is kind of like, kind of abrasive at times.
So, Trump McAfee ticket. Now, that would be something I would definitely vote for in November.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of bizarre dream tickets out there that people are having. What is it? Somebody actually proposed Trump and Sanders, and it was just like, well, because if you think about it, and again, this goes back to the political concept of the horseshoe theory, is that the seeming opposites end up looking a lot like each other. And what you have to understand is the argument is that if Sanders does have the vote, stolen from him, which he likely will, from the Hillary people, a lot of those voters, because they are also anti-establishment, may, not all of them, but may end up going over to Trump. So in many ways, place. They are both in agreement in the place of seemingly, at least, looking like they're anti-establishment.
Well, they're both resonating with the populist
it's
sentiment.
The popular vote.
The populist. It's populism.
Both popular populists.
More or less, but the thing is, unlike Sanders, Trump is actually being very proactive with making sure that those delegates don't get stolen from him. He has both internal people that he hired as well as Roger on the outside running his own PAC to make sure that these delegates don't get stolen. There's actually very interesting things that he has stated, Roger specifically this past week on InfoWars, that here in Texas, for example, that they're trying not to have any Trump people as part of the Texas delegation, even though Trump's supposed to get 48 delegates to vote for him on the first round.
What about you guys?
I know,
Aren't y'all going to
right?
be Trump delegates? What are you going to do if they try to silence you?
Oh, yeah, no.
What are you going to do, Leland? You going to toe the party line?
Well, here's the thing.
If
they steal it from Trump and LP nominates what's his face, Mitt Romney, Mitt Romney's little clone, his little mini-me, Gary Johnson, who defriended me on Facebook years ago. I think I'll have to go either look at some more of the other third parties, such as the Constitution Party, or do what Danny always does and write in SpongeBob.
What if you make it to the RNC, which is possible? Kat made it to the RNC in 2008 as a Missouri delegate. What if you make it to the RNC and they say you are bound to vote for our candidate, Ted Cruz? Are you going to cast your ballot to him? Are you going to abstain? Are you going to be a rebel? Or what's going on? I don't even know if it makes a difference if you're
if you look at the roll call, they don't even have the votes on the floor anymore. And so it's the other thing. The other thing too is that I'm going to be really pushing to get my precinct here because obviously we're in the same congressional district. There's only going to be 3 delegates elected from each congressional district to the national convention. So I'm going to really be pushing to get my precinct chair elected as one of the delegates.
Nice. You know, I interviewed Gary Johnson in 2012, maybe it was 2011 before the election, and it was part of the Foundation for a Free Society, a nonprofit that I helped to found with Jason Rink.
Was that here at the bookstore when he had like 6 people show up?
No, it was in Arizona and at an event. I think that's where it was.
Roger Stone packs the house and even brings Alex Jones here. Gary Johnson, 6 people.
Yeah.
So I interview him, and I always like to ask people tough questions, borderline making them uncomfortable. And I ask him what his position is on aid to Israel. He gave me a very political answer saying, well, I'm against all foreign aid to any country. Now, most journalists would have just moved on, but I, listen with discernment and make sure no one can, quote unquote, get me when they're answering. So I said, okay, well, that's foreign aid. What about military aid? Do you support giving military aid to Israel to help fight Palestine?
It's sort of like when Robert Morrow asked Chelsea, did you know that your father was Webster Hubbell? And he goes like, I am proud to be my parents' daughter. I'm proud to be my parents' daughter, which is a non-answer answer. So
he answered, he couldn't say, no, I'm against the military aid. And he wanted to have his out. I'm against all foreign aid. Most journalists probably gloss over and say, oh, okay. But no, he could not say that he was against foreign aid to Israel.
Yeah. And what's this about? ISIS never attacking Israel? Maybe because they're funding them, along with us and along with the Saudi royals.
To their sovereignty, then.
Oh yeah.
You know what I found funny? So there was an article last week where in Syria you have was it CIA or was it NSA-backed ISIS fighting Pentagon-backed rebels? So you have 2 different factions that were literally funding both sides, and that actually made it out in mainstream news.
Yeah, it's the same. It's classic. It's the same thing that was happening with Al Qaeda. It's 1984. We've always been at war with East Asia.
Isn't it Goldstein or that character that was from 1984 who never actually even existed, but he was made to exist? He was the boogeyman. It's the way Tim Osman, Osama bin Laden was.
And this is Be Brave Radio. We'll be back with you right after this on the Logos Radio Network.
Easy.
I will live my
And welcome back to Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network. I'm Leland Freeman. I'm joined by Elizabeth Egan Everett and John Bush. And it's just, there's a lot of controversial topics that are just in the air. And the fact is that there's just so many people that just want to complain say that's not politically correct, that you can't have an opinion unless it's their opinion. And Elizabeth, why don't you take away on this?
Well, I think the frustration is that, there's all these people protesting right now and they're all about, we want love, we want peace. And it's like, well, then stop causing problems and sucker punching people and, stop, making mountains out of molehills. For example, at a protest the other day outside of a rally, there was a girl who at first I believe she was claiming she was 15, but I think it ended up being that she was actually 19, who started freaking out because she was in a crowd saying, that she had been sexually touched when in fact, if you look at the video footage, you'll see that she actually wasn't. But then she sucker punched the guy. She was seen in the video. If you actually look at the video of her, she started, moving forward on the guy, sucker punched him, and then, too bad, so sad. Somebody pepper sprayed her in the face. Guess what? Oh, well. I think a lot of us are tired of this whole social justice warrior thing where, they're coming off as cry bullies. What is it? All this language policing. Oh, you've infringed upon my safe space. Trigger warnings, microaggressions, cultural appropriation. I mean, at this point, it's like, oh my God, you guys, can you grow up? How about that?
When somebody chalked on, was it a bench to Trump for president on some university and they go, where, you're going in my safe space. And these are the same people that are doing human chains on freeways.
Well, they're the ones that are causing the violence. That's the thing, is it's so deeply hypocritical right now. It is doublethink. And that's the thing that's so astonishing, is that people can't seem to see this strange inversion of logic of, war does not equal peace,
And the question is, how many of these people are actually paid protesters from people like Soros?
And see, that's the big joke that all the alt-right is pushing right now around Donald Trump, is that, look, he's not even president, and yet he's creating new jobs. I mean, I love the humor of the alt-right. They're so funny because they're just trolling. And they call Trump, they call him daddy. They have this little meme that they have where they've got this frog face with the little, comb over hair. And if anything, they're finding light from it. But also, they're also stepping up and saying, you know what? People, stop. Enough. Grow up. We're over it.
Now there's a balance there, because these social justice warriors, people need to get thicker skin and just disassociate. But at the same time, there's this thing with the quote unquote alt-right where they seem to go out of their way to purposefully trigger people, if only to show that they have First Amendment. So there's what's right and wrong, what's legal and illegal, what's ethical and unethical, and then there's what you ought to do and what you ought not to do. So sure, you have a right to walk up to someone and call them a nasty name or make fun of their gender identity, quote unquote. But should you do that? No, you should be a kind human being that's a decent person. So I'm not a fan of the alt-right. I think there's racist tendencies, and I think that's undermining the libertarian movement in large ways right now.
Well, there is a whole niche within the alt-right which is more racist, like that. You can't lop them into all one
cultural
group.
Fascism is a thing now.
Yeah, well, but that's more something called 1488. The 1488ers, and that is a dangerous situation. Well, it's to do with the 14 words that they see as being this sort of fascist stance, and then 88 has to do with gematria connections to Hitler or something. No, believe me, that is modern fascism, and it is a scary thing. But that would be
Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, hang on. This is important. It would be like putting all the Republicans and conservatives into one basket, and it simply isn't so. I remember when people, I've had some people writing me saying, "Elizabeth, are you a Republican now?" And it's like, well, I felt like I needed to vote Republican this time around to be a part of this journey that I'm on with Leland and us going and learning as we are and really seeing things, firsthand and making a difference. However, I would say I'm much more, independently conservative, more libertarian. I have some alt-right tendencies, but that's more the silliness and the snarkiness of standing up for my rights.
Well, what's also of interest is that a couple of weeks ago when we had Don Zimmerman as one of our many, many guests on our live remote from the SD convention, he was saying, is this the twilight of political parties? That the fact that you're pigeonholing people in these political parties when it's basically
steal the vote,
it's basically because they have the monopoly on ballot access.
But it's never been more apparent to be so and more obvious to the herd and the
from someone that has $7 billion.
No. But see, here's the thing. But the herd is actually beginning to get how screwed it is. When the Curly Hoaglans come out and say, yeah, we all take the primary. This whole primary thing is a joke. It's really, it's our decision, not yours. Go away. Basically that's what he's saying.
Which kind of undermines the reason why I've always voted. Well, it's interesting because this kind of undermines the reason why I always vote in the Republican primary. Ben Farmer always goes like, why don't you just take part in the libertarian conventions? I go, well, I trust that you guys are going to do the right thing and put out liberty candidates because that's the whole basis of the platform of y'all's party.
Well,
I feel that I'm doing more good voting in the Republican primary and taking part in the Republican convention to get liberty and libertarian backed based people in that particular thing. And then in November, all the gloves are off.
Hughes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the thing is that on both sides.
That's an interesting. And let me touch upon that real quick. Or do actually? Why don't you finish it?
Let's save that whole election for a whole segment or another segment.
Okay,
talk about
Liz.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say that I think on both sides right now, people are extremely, they're waking up to the fact that we haven't had a true choice in a long time. There's actually a new movement that's been started called We Will Walk. On the GOP side, there's something called the Lions Guard that's now been created, and they're getting death threats and people are having pictures of their children's school being sent to them saying, we are coming for him, like for the kids, so unfortunately there's a deliberate.
Anti-Trump people are sending pictures
so
like
much
that?
for love. Yeah. So at the end of the day, look, you can protest, but let's allow each other to have free speech and to stand up for what they believe in. I mean, that's the whole point, is that I may not like what you believe in, but if it's not going to harm or affect me, then I need to allow you, because we do live in America, and even though some argue that it doesn't really exist anymore.
As long as it doesn't trigger me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Please. Trigger warning.
So
warning.
I'm proud to say that I was recently included on a list of people to be physically removed from society by this guy named James Egbert, who I think embodies the alt-right. He identifies as a libertarian, white nationalist, and cultural fascist. And he recently posted something in some group that says, list of libertarians that should be physically removed. It includes Jeffrey Tucker, Larkin Rose, Kathy Reisenwitz. I'm sorry to break your heart. Or, you like the other. Is it Kathy Reisenwitz, or who's the girl you always talk about? You mentioned her today already.
Which? Julie Borowski.
Julie Borowski.
Oh, Julie
Derek
Borowski.
Freeman, Gary Johnson's on the list. And then I wasn't on the first list, but somebody said, it says, if I left anyone out, please tell me. And then someone comes in and says, what did they say? They say,
was Cat on the first list?
Why? No, he wasn't. They say John Bush.
Wait. Is there something you got to tell us? Cat? What? He wasn't. Is that something you're not telling us?
I don't get it.
You said he wasn't. When I said it was Cat on the first
No,
one.
Cat is not a man. I can confirm that confidently. It says John Bush for starting the whole Facebook war after taking screenshots. If anybody remembers that, I started calling people out that were tossing around.
But this is all creepy stuff here. Like, it's the same thing. Like,
that's what fascism is. That's what happens in fascism.
but it's not just there. It's everywhere. It's like there are websites now coming up about how to blacklist people, different kinds of conservatives who are standing, with Cruz or are standing with Trump, they're like ruin their career, and it's like, oh my gosh, you guys, stop it!
It's like
behave.
And look what Anonymous has become. It's pretty much been completely co-opted.
Yeah, it's trouble. That's why here on the show and at the bookstore, we have a proud message of unity. And, we even welcome conversation. Oftentimes there's Bernie supporters that come down, and there's socialists that come down, and we'll talk to them. We don't run them out of the store. We don't shout them down. We don't wish ill will or physical violence upon them. We have a conversation, and that's what it should be all about. The only problem is, I think why everyone's so worked up about this now more than ever, but also in the past, is precisely because it centers around politics and the political institution, which forces everyone to participate, which is why I'm a proud anarchist, because whenever you have an institution where the entirety of an entire group of people in a given arbitrary geographic area is forced into the same system, whether you agree with it philosophically, spiritually, practically or not, there's going to be people that are pissed off, which is why we should decentralize all the things, including social organization, and people that want to be cultural fascists, people that want to be trigger happy or not triggered or whatever, go do your own thing in your own little bubble and just intermingle with people when it suits your needs. We can't be all forced into the same bucket and forced to subsidize the same programs that we don't agree with. It creates discord and division.
Wasn't it like that until the 1970s when it was this new urbanist movement where it was trying to force everybody into the city? At the same time, they were deindustrializing the country.
That's Agenda 21 is also happening, where they're deliberately doing land grabs right now and they're pretending that it's protecting ancient artifacts. That's such a ruse. It's for mining rights, you guys. They want to sell off the land and they want to move us into cities because we're more controllable that way.
It's money and control.
But I think one of the biggest issues about all of this is that there's a deliberate exacerbation taking place because of the media. And the media gets ratings, they get more sales, when they have, electiontainment, where basically, they get more ad revenue, if they can make a mess of things. And unfortunately, the herd gets completely taken up by it. They get funded by the George Soroses, and look, here's the deal. I don't know about you, but I felt like, in the last few years, I think that we were all doing very, very well with each other until I think some of the instigators up at the elite level decided that they needed to separate us a little bit and cause some issues. Of course, we've always had problems, but I felt, and it's been deliberately exacerbated to be bad.
Well, they want to
create healing. Yeah. Well, that's the whole point, is that when we are divided, we are weak.
Yeah. We're fighting each other.
Anyway, we have just concluded the first hour of Be Brave Radio. We have
fast.
2 hours to go. We are with you till 2 p.m. Central here on the Logos Radio Network with Leland Freeman,
Elizabeth Egan Everett,
Donald Trump,
Michelle Fields.
Why not?
No.
We'll be back right after this.
Talk
And welcome back to the second hour of Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network, logosradionetwork.com, as well as nationally syndicated on affiliates across the country, including 89.1 TXLR here in Austin. And you can also listen to us on your smartphone or tablet by using the TuneIn app and look for Texas Liberty Radio. And we have 2 hours left on this show before, Ryan Mutzel and Nutrition Spiritual Warrior and the rest of the Burke Superfoods guys.
Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior.
I keep getting the name of the song.
It's about nutrition.
It is about nutrition.
And poker and yoga and veganism and going green and all sorts of
stuff. And our
stuff.
block will be rounded out after their show with Ben Farmer and the Voice of Reason.
Voice of Reason, the LP show. I'm sure that they'll have some more positive things to say about the LP candidates than we did, but
oh, bless.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, all about diverse opinions, unless you disagree with me.
That's right. Then I'm intolerant.
And the interesting to think about is that the guys that are usually right are usually demonized. Even Ron Paul, was it 4 years ago, was called a racist. And if you look at what's happening to Donald Trump, he's just having everything thrown at him, including attacks on his campaign manager where he was accused of battery. Let's look into that.
It was I believe he was charged with misdemeanor battery. It is Trump's campaign manager who was a former cop, Corey Lewandowski. And basically, unfortunately, there are women out there, unfortunately, who really give the rest of us females a bad name. And these are women who tend to be, forgive my saying, but this is very pertinent, they tend to be attention whores. And it's like the girl who cried wolf, because this is Michelle Fields, who used to work for Breitbart, and basically claimed that she was thrown to the floor and was absolutely manhandled by Corey. And the joke is that she actually said this before the video. She realized that she was on video. And then, her story changed, and then if, you guys should all go and watch this video because there's nothing, there's no face, there's nothing, and the joke is that she is saying it's the worst thing to happen to her since her father's death.
Now, here's something of interest to think about. First of all, she touched Trump first.
That's the Trump.
Well, it's not so much. It's not so much.
Can I press charges?
Yeah,
he should.
And the thing is, it's not because of Trump's ego. He's a presidential candidate, so they're surrounded by Secret Service, and so he was trying to step in and basically separate her from Trump because who knows who she was?
Yeah,
she said she just approached
an ambush journalism move.
Well,
who knows?
Well, the thing is, it was a big room, and who knows who she was? It's like if somebody was coming towards you really quick, the first thing I would do is try to basically step in between you and that particular person because you don't know if that person's got a knife or whatnot.
It was a redirect. That's okay. It's not the end of the world.
I mean,
if that assault, no, nobody was harmed. It didn't seem like she was hurt.
If that's battery, then everyone's dog has a battery charge for me. Then
no, but you have to understand that this is actually even worse because this girl is known for doing this. She's done it actually several times. It's like one of those people that will go into a department store and deliberately, trip over their own feet and be like, oh my God, I'm in pain. Because she claimed she was assaulted when she worked for Students of Liberty and threatened the organization. She claimed Senator Allen West sexually assaulted her, and then later, she recanted. She verbally charged the New York police with brutality during occupying Wall Street.
Well, that was not very hard to believe.
Claimed Leonardo DiCaprio manhandled her during an interview. So look, she's on it. And then claimed that Lewandowski grabbed her arm and threw her to the ground, which she didn't. So I have a feeling, watch this. Watch in about a month, she'll have some sort of book that she's putting out or, some talk show about standing up for women's rights.
And it's a shame that a lot of people at Breitbart are falling for this, including former editor-at-large Ben Shapiro, who, quote-unquote, quit in disgust for Breitbart not reporting this. I'm like, there was nothing to report originally.
How much y'all want to bet the district attorney that went forward with the charges is a Democrat?
Well, it came out on Drudge Report that the district attorney is a Hillary supporter.
Well, unfortunately, this seems to be, the high shenanigans of what's been going on. There's actually a book that came out recently called A Nation of Victims, The Decay of the American Character. I mean, what are we teaching? What are we teaching our kids? What are we teaching those around us when we literally show them that, we can get away with making up these kinds of lies and harming other people? I mean, she is literally trying to harm for life this Corey fellow, like his whole career, everything. Think about that.
Politics is a nasty game, man. It brings out the worst in people.
The fact that Trump even made a point of this at his Wisconsin rally that he had earlier this week that was live streamed on YouTube. That he goes he first joked, yeah, you're fired. No, I'm not going to fire him because I saw the tape. It wasn't battery. It wasn't assault. And I'm not going to fire him and have his life ruined because of
it
this.
Hasn't phased him in the polls, has it? You can't really phase the guy.
Well, I think I think what's happening is that more and more and more every day when they come out with some sort of spin or they change things around or they muck with him, for example, with the whole abortion issue, which really is, a situation. That. Okay, well, we can't. But the thing that I think is understood is that most people who have an IQ above that, about above the level of a grape, hopefully is doing some research right now and looking at, these, for example, Salon is, they're horrific at the media bias. I mean, I actually keep them on my list of kind of groups to look at because I love seeing how horrific they are and the slant that they do, So hopefully, especially, for example, one of the things that's really big right now is an answer to a hypothetical question. Let's remember, it was theoretical, it was hypothetical that was put to Trump, and you could argue that he didn't answer in the best way. And Ben Carson
answered
said,
honestly.
No, here's the thing. He answered it correctly in the sense of if something is illegal, then you should be punished for it. Now, mind you, it doesn't mean that that's what is so right now out in the world.
And one was asked, it's like, would you prosecute women if they had an abortion if it became illegal? And he originally said, yes, I would. And then
that's if it became illegal, though.
Right.
Like, that's the difference here. But look at that little mucky. I mean, I feel like that was a bit of entrapment right there. And look, Donald Trump does shoot from the hip. I wouldn't say he is a master genius to be able to perhaps sidestep that. Ben Carson came out and said, I don't think he had a chance to really properly think it through. And I think that is the issue is that, look, the one thing that maybe we love or hate Trump for is that he is new to this, so he is learning as he goes along. And hopefully he learns quickly through his advisors like Stone, but not always.
Well, yeah, I know, because it's interesting is that on the evangelical right, there's actually a lot of people that view women who have an abortion as they call them baby killers. I mean, that's just, and so it's interesting that he kind of had that because he was thinking on his feet that's, that particular group won't vote for me or something like that.
No, I doubt it. I think he was just trying to be smart in the sense of if something is seen as being illegal, then people should be punished. It's not even about, the astonishing levels of intricacy, about that one subject.
So there was major backlash and he came out and somewhat recanted or clarified. Let me read what he said. This is from a CNN article. Mm-hmm. I'd love if somebody could help me pull up the original quote of what he said, but I think you got the gist of it. So he recanted several hours later that same day. If Congress were to pass legislation making abortion illegal and the federal courts upheld this legislation, or any state were permitted to ban abortion under state and federal law, the doctor or any other person performing this illegal act upon a woman would be held legally responsible, not the woman. Mm-hmm. The woman is a victim in this case, as is the life in her womb. My position has not changed, like Ronald Reagan. I'm pro-life with exceptions. So that doesn't seem unreasonable.
No, it doesn't. Well, but here's the thing to think about. Why is this even at the forefront? There are much more pressing issues that this country
and
this
pretty
planet
big issue for a lot of people, especially women.
Yeah, it is.
But the fact is that this shouldn't be the big push is, the pro-life people. It's like, no, it should be about the economics. It should be about making this country self-sustainable again, returning our manufacturing base. The fact that these social stances that the Republican Party still takes and the Democratic Party still takes, that the fact that that's how they're pulling voters, that people are more concerned about gay marriage and abortion than about the economics, our money supply, manufacturing base, how price and cost of living. Those should be the things that people should be more concerned about.
Well, who are you to determine what people should be concerned about?
Look, Leland, as a female, obviously this is a close to home kind of situation where these things do matter, and we should be allowed to make certain choices. In my own opinion, I feel like those choices should be harder to make the later the term, of the baby, in your womb.
Government make it harder?
I'm not sure about that. But look, here's the deal. Right now, in Berkeley, in California, there are women who are calling for abortion clinics to be on college campuses because they want it as a matter of convenience. Sorry, I have a problem with
wrong.
that. Yeah, thank
Illegal
you.
Or legal, that's not right.
And the quote of the woman who's one of the driving forces behind it is saying, it's a matter of convenience. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't get in the way of our studies. And it's like, excuse me, there are plenty of choices for you. It's called closing your legs. And how about some birth control? So sorry, I mean, there are these subtleties here that really do matter.
What I was getting at is that why is it that there's a lot in the Republican Party still trying to make this the priority of the platform versus economics versus getting rid of all the debts, getting rid of all these overbloated social programs. The fact that they're making this such a big deal, and the way I look at it is if you view these people as sinners and you're trying to save them, you know what? If you live your life clean and you'll go to heaven, why would you want these people to be in heaven with you as well? I mean,
people are concerned that they see it as a loss of life, and these fetuses, unborn children are being killed. And so just as passionate as anti-war people are, people that see this as an issue of life are passionate because they feel like there's little lives that are being killed, or some would even say murdered.
And some would even say, I mean, you can go into the deeper conversation. And for me, this has been a big issue in my mind and my heart, is the fact that there is organ harvesting, and the fact that they
that's the
and
uncheck your donor thing on your driver's license.
And the thing is, though, is that when this is being done to little babies, and they are using languaging to make it to excuse it away by calling it fetal tissue. I understand from working in the Chinese herbal industry that there's an awful lot of black markets going on of really incorrect usages. And, you could say, oh, it's for science. No, not a lot of it. No, sorry. I mean, I have it blows my mind that they're making money on the side for, in basically murdering these beings, sorry. And I'm not, I am pro-choice to a certain extent, but I'm also pro-life, I mean, for me and my own emotional, head and my own soul and ability to sleep at night. For me, if I ever got pregnant, I would choose to keep the baby. Absolutely. But that's just me.
What do we do about the problem that there is such a huge population of people that do feel the need to get abortions? And I think it, more so than legislation or Roe v. Wade, like if conservatives are concerned about this, they need to get out in the streets. They need to volunteer. They need to go to the poorest communities in their areas and help these single mothers. And we all need to help one another. We can't pass legislation.
And we will pick this topic up after this short break here on the Logos Radio Network with Be Brave Radio.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
And welcome back to Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network, broadcast Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central here on the Logos Radio Network. I am joined, of course, by Elizabeth Egan Everett and John Bush, and we're actually on a very, very, very hot topic right now. We're talking about, of all things, abortion.
Well, and before we get back to that topic,
yay!
We want to shift gears slightly, but we're joined by Stephen Jones, who is leading up a underground church, Freedom Fellowship, every Saturday here at Brave New Books from 10:30 p.m. to noon. And I guess we're about a month into it now. You've been doing it maybe 4 or 5 times?
Yeah, 4 times now.
Cool. So tell us, how's it going, and what can people expect if they come down and join the fellowship?
Well, it's going pretty well. We have a good core group of people who have been coming, and you can expect the unexpected, spirit-led. No formatted, services. We don't beg you for money. We do have to cover our costs, but, God takes care of that. We don't have big, long sermons on tithing. I believe tithing is, if the law went away with Christ, then so did tithing. So for the church to keep a hold of that, keep a hold of that part of the law and use it for their own financial gains, that's something that we're definitely not for. We need more people so that we can actually get out and do stuff in the community.
Yeah.
We need the freedom-loving people to come out here and join us.
Cool. So there's music, right? Each one of them, you're up there doing some hymns?
Yeah, I can actually use some musicians. Anybody who's interested or is a worship leader and knows how to play the guitar or sing or bang a tambourine or some drums, definitely a good opportunity to start from the ground up and build a team so we can have some good music.
Share with us some of the stuff y'all talked about. Were there any particular verses y'all went over or any themes that were discussed today?
Well, today we discussed how Romans 13, the church tells you to obey all the authorities that are put there because they're put there by God. But, yet actually the Bible teaches something totally different than that. When John and Peter went into the Sanhedrin, he told the priest asked him not to speak in the name of Christ. And he said, well, you tell me whether it's right to obey God or obey you. So there's a difference between obeying God and obeying an unconstitutional law or a law that goes against your belief. Then I think it's just fine to break that law.
Right on. I like it. That's what we want to hear here. I have some friends on my Facebook page I have a lot of Bernie friends that are supporters. Very few Hillary fans though. And I actually saw a Hillary Clinton yard sign for the first time ever yesterday. So I didn't know they were out there.
Was it the Defense Distributors guys just trolling, or was it actually a legitimate yard sign?
It might have been. But somebody posted who would Jesus vote for? And all the people are like, he would vote for Bernie. He would vote for Bernie.
Oh, yeah,
My
no,
commentary
no.
said he
No,
probably
that's not
wouldn't
true,
vote.
actually.
And he was probably more of an anarchist than a fan of our fashion of democracy. But how would you answer that question?
I would say he would go into the voter registration, look at all the computers that are, performing the fraud, and turn them over and smash them to
Thank
pieces.
you.
Just like he did with the money change.
And also and forcing somebody to pay out to poor people, or is through a barrel of a gun, is not Christic in any way.
Christ
shape,
went
or
and
form.
did it himself.
He's a
Got his hands dirty.
voluntarist. He's a voluntarist.
Yeah. So let's get back to the topic at hand and get your perspective as a Christian man, as a leader of this fellowship. What, if you don't mind sharing, I know it's a controversial issue, but first, give us the traditional Christian perspective on abortion, and then give us some of your views and what, how would abortion be brought up in an underground anti-establishment church?
Well, I kind of agree with Elizabeth. She was telling me something about using it as a convenience. I think it has become a convenience. I think the original law was written with the intent of helping those who have had incest or rape or things to that matter not have to go to the underground doctor with a coat hanger to get that taken care of.
Yeah.
I believe there is some health issues if it is actually banned. I don't believe that people should, like Donald Trump says, be punished like the woman be punished herself for having an abortion. She's kind of in a sticky spot. I mean, my view is I love everybody and God can forgive everything.
That's a very tolerant view. There's a lot of Christians that are a lot more authoritarian about it and adamant about it.
Yeah, they view
it's a human issue.
Yeah, they view people that advocate for abortion or have had abortions as baby killers, and the fact that, like Elizabeth was saying, is that there's it should not be a form of convenience. There's forms of contraception, condoms, birth control pills, even the morning after.
There's adoption too.
Yeah. And there's actually a lot of parents who would love to adopt right now. That's why they are going to places like China and Africa and adopting. And we do have a lot of children here that just definitely need that connection and that love as well. So
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to add that adoption, I would like to hope, would be perhaps even a first choice.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that perhaps before people would have an abortion, they might have maybe a therapy session or something, and then it would be agreed where it's really talked out. I think I honor it more in the first trimester per se, and right in the beginning. Mind you, the argument is that right at conception the DNA is unique. However, for me, I think it's when the being becomes sentient, where they can feel pain. I think it's about 8 weeks. It just,
when there's a
there's so many, well, the heartbeat
so
is actually seen around 3.5 weeks. It's such a tough conversation, but I think the idea, unfortunately, I do know women that literally see it as a form of contraception, and I think that's absolutely incorrect.
So you brought up a good thing too, like I don't know if this is advice or whatever, but if anybody is ever to have an abortion, it seems like the prudent thing to do by the universe, by God, by the growing life would be to try to take care of it as soon as possible, rather than waiting, delaying, being undecided, and then before you know it, you have a full-grown body in
you
your
have a
belly.
living being. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough, conception, and then what is it? Not gestation. There's a word for the quickening. Whenever the fetus is able to live outside of the mother, there's so many different ways you could look at it. That's why it's hard when government gets involved and they try to identify it. And there's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months.
Yeah.
It's so arbitrary that it's really hard to define in that manner.
Embryo, zygote, fetus.
Well, and I think we lose our humanity though, especially when we even it blows my mind that there are females out there who are now even thinking of making money in selling those parts. And to me, that's monstrous.
Capitalism.
What's of interest?
Okay.
Well, what's of interest is with Planned Parenthood. Not only did the people at Planned Parenthood not get indicted, the whistleblowers are now getting indicted with regards to the organ harvesting.
What are they teaching the public? That the whistleblowers are the ones that are being put in prison or being. So I mean, look at the joke. There's this alt-right joke right now about
you and the alt-right.
Oh, I have.
Has she gone to the dark side?
No. Hey, look, I can talk about alt-right and be on their. I'm the queen of snark. If you look at my social media, I have a bunch of snarky stuff. And
I do like the humor.
And then that's it. But see, humor wakes people up. Welcome to Bill Hicks. Welcome to George Carlin. And there's this great meme that they've been putting out saying, Edward Snowden is, literally being sought after. We're trying to throw him in jail for literally, coming out and telling us what we need to know.
Yeah.
And yet here we've got this criminal, Hillary Clinton, who's keeping everything to herself, who's not telling us what we need to know, basically.
She wants to prosecute
and
Snowden.
She's running for president. How is this woman not already in jail?
She has 147 FBI agents that want her indicted. And there's an interesting dynamic going on. Roger Stone said on InfoWars earlier this week that Obama might pardon her, and it might be in exchange for her dropping out of the race so Uncle Joe can then be nominated from the floor of the convention.
Creepy Uncle Joe with the little lollipop for the senator's kiddies, cuckolding the senators on film when he, is stroking their kids on camera. Come on. Seriously, people, is this the best we've got? Stop.
What do you got something you want to say, Stephen?
Oh, I just wanted to say, going back to the abortion thing, I would say people use your 6 Ps. I use the 6 Ps. Prior planning prevents piss poor performance. If you're going to have sex, protect yourself. For one, I mean, there's diseases and all that out there as well. Also, be ready and able to have a child if you're going to do that. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
Yeah, or don't have sex with someone you're not willing to have a child with. Easier said than done, of course.
Well, and what is
in my younger days, I don't know if I held true to that, but it's, great responsibility comes with intercourse and the possibility of birthing a new life.
Yeah.
And then we're coming up on a break, and this is Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
The Chicago Marathon is no tiptoe through the tulips, but a pregnant woman overdue with her second child ran the whole race before going into labor. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, back with the amazing story of the marathon mom next.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
Amber Miller, a 27-year-old mom from suburban Chicago, gives new meaning to the word endurance. Miller was pregnant and 3 weeks overdue at the start of the city's marathon. She'd run 7 times before, including once while pregnant with her first child, so she figured, what the heck, and planned to run only half the course. But when she got started, she just kept going, finishing the entire 26 miles in just over 6 hours. Then at the finish line, she had a more urgent race to run to the hospital, where she gave birth to a healthy 7-pound baby girl. Phew, I bet that was a relief. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
Actually be kidding about chemtrails.
Live Free Speech Radio, LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Then when I get back on my feet again, I can climb so high that I won't feel low. And I keep on praying, baby, that when I get where
Welcome back to Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network. I'm Leland Freeman. I'm also joined by Elizabeth Egan Everett and John Bush, and we have a guest with us. We've had for the past segment, who hosts a fellowship at Brave New Books every Saturday from 10:30 to
12 o'clock.
And what I find of interest is that just even having the interview with you for these 2 segments, you've mentioned the word God or Jesus more times than Joel Osteen has in an entire weekly broadcast.
What, not cash? Not, pay us now?
So I can support my 18,000 seat sports arena I bought from the city of Houston.
Because he needs another mansion.
That's the path to God.
I'll send you a prayer cloth.
Oh, yeah. Blessed by me.
Tapered in gold.
Exactly.
Back to the abortion thing, you mentioned that you want to grow the fellowship so you can get out in the community. And definitely one of the things I want to do participating with you guys is help try to alleviate some of the ills that we see with the homeless folk around here. And one way I've been thinking about that, because I went to a meeting of the UT Area Partners. It's like a neighborhood association for the businesses and neighborhoods around UT. And homelessness is always the biggest issue. But I got to thinking, maybe we should view the homeless rather as a problem as neighbors. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these folks live literally next door to the bookstore, next door to the homes around here. And it's not illegal to stay out there, which is good and bad for a liberty perspective. But there's ways around this where we can help rather than trying to shove away and push away. But what I wanted to get back to the abortion thing is you said, having a big, strong fellowship, and it would seem that whenever that abortion would be less of an issue, less of a problem, less of an epidemic, dare I say, if everyone had a strong community and if they were pre-primed to know that they can go to their community. So if you belong to a fellowship, or if you belong to a liberty community or your friends and family at the bookstore or whatever subgroup you're in, even a group of Bernie supporters or whatever the heck, Black Lives Matter folks, you have an issue, you become pregnant, you are insecure, you feel like you won't be able to handle a child. I think the thing to do rather than go to Planned Parenthood is to go to your friends and family. So tell me, if you had someone in your fellowship, say a young teenage woman who got pregnant, it was a one-night stand, and they just didn't know what to do, and they came to the church and said, hey, I need help. How would that play out?
Well, I would first of all advise them to go to their family and to talk to their family about it. Also, the thing that the devil wants us to do is to be divided from each other, to be alone, to destroy us, to destroy our mind because we're alone. And so really as a community, if we come together, then we can support people that are going through any issue, really. You know, especially one is, like, I have a life in my belly, you know. I think I would definitely encourage them if they can't handle it, you know, to seek out abortion. That's the best option. Not abortion, but adoption instead of abortion. And that would be the best option. You know, I think really we can do anything if we come together as a community. We can do anything. But if we're all isolated and kind of to ourselves, you know, with no common goal, that's when the downfall comes in. That's when we fall. That's when we're isolated.
Yeah, so. And just being hateful. I remember in high school, I had a girlfriend who dealt with this, and she was just bullied, and everyone gave her such a hard time, and it was just the nastiest thing that you could imagine, going through such a difficult thing. And I think people are programmed just to be rude and mean, but I imagine, you know, taking it a step further is people are really mean and nasty like that in high school because so many young women are having abortions, and it's probably those who secretly had an abortion that are the most vocal against other people that did because they feel ashamed or guilty themselves. So I think there's a lot of judgment that surrounds it, and when at the end of the day, it's something that, as you said, we should welcome people with open arms and just and use love instead of division and hate. And
they often will beat up on themselves. They put, you know, any woman who actually makes that decision too quickly often finds that she is haunted by that decision for the rest of her life. You know, and that's, you know, and those are the women that we do have to honor as well, is that, you know, yes, people make mistakes. Absolutely. And guess what? Often they do plenty, you know, if they're empathically aligned, that they do enough torture on themselves and punishment on themselves. Thanks.
What's also of interest is it takes two people to make a kid, the mother and the father. And the reason why I bring this up,
maybe not these days with the test tubes
what's interesting is that
chimeras and
I read a lot of people joke says, well, you should just be a sperm donor. It's like, well, that means I have like 1 million kids floating around there and they won't have a dad. That's not right. But then if you look at the child support system, which is very biased towards women, pro-abortion advocates say, "Oh, it's the woman's right."
Well,
Shouldn't it be the parent?
No, but hang on. It's often because the woman is the one who ends up bringing up the child. Now, not always, but you know, that's why it's a little more balanced.
But at the same token, it's the courts that often dictate the guardianship of the child, and at least in Texas.
Well, it depends on which country, because that's not so true anymore necessarily. It depends on the state.
Texas is ridiculously bad about being very biased towards the mothers, even though
in like family court and stuff.
Yeah, even if you have
non-court it's like extrajudicial.
All things should be, of course, at a certain age, the kid should decide which parent they grow up with. But things aren't equal. It's like you can have a father who's in much better financial standing, is much potentially more stable with a lifestyle, and yet they say, okay, the kid goes to the mother, and then you have court-ordered child support, which is a non-expiring lien that's mandated by Congress with the Bradley Amendment. And so when non-expiring lien means, it's also like student loans. Even bankruptcies don't expunge the lien. The lien doesn't disappear unless you pay it off. And so you have a lot of people that view certain individuals that are, they're desperate to get laid as sperm donors, and then they're entrapped by child support. And then think of it this way: the kid, just think about what the kid has to go through. You have the soul that's brought into the world through not the best intentions. I mean, that's ultimately, I guess, what the argument is that you have a new living being, a new soul, and it's like, so what's the best outcome for the child?
Well, the men typically, like you said, Leland, they are stuck with not having the custody of the child, and they have to pay child support. I do know several. I actually went to jail myself for non-payment because I was late and broke, and it was in 2008 when I had no work, and ended up going to jail. There was a man in there who was 69 years old. He had been in and out of jail for about three or what was it?
Number of years.
Anyway, it was quite a few years, and he owed $170,000 to child support. Wow. And every time he got out a month later, he was back in for 6 months. Wow. His child was a U.S. Marine fighting in Afghanistan, and the mother would not let go the past judgment for the arrears. So really, a lot of people get stuck in that cycle of going back and forth to jail. As soon as they get out, they can't get a job because they have no skills, and then they can't pay the child support, so they go back to jail.
I think it's important to note that just as you don't have to vote in an election for president, you also don't have to involve the government in your marriage. There are financial incentives that most people just do it because they don't know any difference. They don't know that you don't have to get a marriage license, but a lot of people do for the tax benefits, and you get tax write-offs for having children, and you give them their Social Security and stuff. But my wife and I, we didn't get a marriage license, nor do our children have Social Security numbers. So in the god-awful event that we split, our intention is to seek arbitration. We already have our own private contracts as to how things will play out afterwards. But I think the worst thing you could do is involve an arbitrary third party who doesn't even know anything about you or your interests, your principles. The most important thing to do is to go to your family, to go to your church, and to work that dispute out through arbitration and to get something that's actually workable rather than relying on a judge who could be biased. Maybe the judge themselves went through a nasty divorce and they hate women or hate men.
And it's not just the judges these days. One of the most eye-opening documentaries I've ever seen was something called Divorce Corp. And I highly recommend you all watch it because, yes, it is. And goodness gracious, it's astonishing to see, two good parents that go in that they enter in trying to get some sort of balance or justice. And it ends up going so far off and so into such horror. And not only do they get, their lives are ruined, their wallets are ruined, but the children's lives are ruined, often because of all this sort of, these rules and regulations, but also people coming in who want a little bit of extra money themselves, somebody's got to hire somebody to come in and watch the kid. And, is the kid being abused just in case? And it's like, no, oftentimes, no.
Yeah, it reminds me of Mrs. Doubtfire, a great movie.
Bless.
Well, we're coming up on a break. Stephen, why don't you just give listeners a little bit information one more time how they can come and join the fellowship?
Well, 10:30 to 12 o'clock p.m. every Saturday here at Brave New Books. We are the underground bookstore. We are not 501c3 corporation. We're doing it without having any kind of license to the state.
Right on. You heard it here, folks. This is Be Brave Radio every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Thanks, Stephen Jones, for all you do. We'll be back.
Welcome back to Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network. I'm Leland Freeman. I'm also joined by Elizabeth Egan Everett and John Bush. And we had a very, very hot topic. We were talking about abortion, and that was led into that basically entrapment question on Donald Trump. And they're just using a lot of things that they're just blaming on Donald Trump left and right. For example, Ted Cruz's little mistress scandal that was broken by the National Enquirer.
Well, and that's the tip of the iceberg. Come on now. There's a conversation about a DC madam right now who's going to come out with all this information that she believes will, shift the race. And I mean, look, obviously Ted has been up to all kinds of, shenanigans. What was it? Someone who's come out recently, saying that she was involved with him said that he'd like to be called Teddy Bear. And, and look, there is the conversation that, well, here's the thing. Whatever you're doing in the bedroom, fine. But if you've made vows, that's a conversation. That's not okay. But also, here's this guy trying to pretend that he's so full of piety. Don't you dare be lying like this. He's trying to seem like he's so Christian.
He also tried to dump it on Roger Stone and Trump. And here's actually a little video clip.
Yeah, but that's Rubio.
Inquirer published a story. It is a story that quoted one source on the record, Roger Stone, Donald Trump's chief political advisor. Let me be clear. This National Enquirer story is garbage. It is complete and utter lies. It is a tabloid smear. And it is a smear that has come from Donald Trump and his henchmen.
And it's actually Rubio's guy.
It is attacking my family. And what is striking?
It's interesting he puts all these pauses
Donald
Can we stop this? This man, totally so skeezy. It's not even funny.
Been foreshadowing that this attack was coming. It's not surprising that Donald Trump's tweet occurs the day before the attack comes out.
And here's the backstory.
And I would note that Mr. Stone is a man who has 50 years of dirty tricks behind him. He's a man for whom a term was coined for copulating with a rodent. Well, let me be clear. Donald Trump may be a rat, but I have no desire to copulate with him.
What a dork. That was kind of a funny way to end it, though.
But anyway, here's the backstory on all that. Long story short.
Short story long.
Rubio hired a bunch of private investigators to, look up what Ted Cruz was doing as kind of like a hedge on his own little personal stuff, which was it that he's like a closet homosexual, more or less?
Oh, the phone parties?
Yeah.
Phone boy.
And after Rubio's campaign was suspended, these private investigators were just like, well, hell, we got this story. Let's look for another payday. They tried to shop it around to a bunch of other media entities, including Breitbart, and I believe also the Washington Post. And the National Enquirer picked it up. And the interesting thing, if you listen to Stone's interviews, you hear Cruz call him a henchman. The thing is that Stone wasn't paid by the Trump campaign and didn't drop all this information. And the fact that he also says, like, if I'm supposedly dropping it in the background, why would I be quoted in the article itself? It was a very, very, very articulate explanation that it's on, was it Alex Jones? He posted on his YouTube channel, the Alex Jones channel, March 28th. He has this whole explanation about what happened. But yeah, it was Rubio's private investigators that basically went into business for themselves.
I think it's cool how someone that's so relevant that one of the leading presidential nominees or potential nominees, Ted Cruz, is ticked off at Roger Stone, who just so happens to be one of our good buddies.
Well, we love him. He's such a hero. And the thing is, I take personal insult when Ted Cruz calls, Stone a rat. And that is actually, by the way, that's what he was calling him. And what that is that's another political name for political entourage, not entourage, sabotage and dirty tricks. So that's what he was referring to. He just didn't explain it very well.
But here's the interesting thing to think about. In this day and age where Hulk Hogan won a judgment against Gawker for releasing his sex tape, if there was no basis to what the National Enquirer broke, why isn't Ted Cruz immediately dropping a lawsuit on the National Enquirer?
Because he knows that there's more that would come out, and there is. Look, Heidi Cruz tried to file for divorce already twice. Both times she stated her reasons were for infidelity.
Where was that reported? That's public record, right? The divorce files and stuff?
Yeah. And the thing is, again, and then you've got these odd police reports that have come out in the past of her being found being inconsolable on the side of the road. I believe they actually already have had situations where they've been living separate. The kids aren't into him. So here's the thing.
That one video of the daughter turning away.
Well, yeah, because she doesn't want to. Look, kids are smart.
They're probably tired of the campaign. They never see their dad. He's so phony too.
There's this great line where kids are called drunken Buddhas. Where they're very much, they are radically honest. And you know what? She doesn't want to be used by her daddy. You know.
But if you look at Heidi's background, she's also Goldman Sachs. She's also Consul of Foreign Relations. Then there's the $500,000. $500,000. Was it $1 million? Like, the number keeps going up every time I hear it. Illegal loan to Cruz's senatorial campaign, which he claimed was she was cashing out her retirement early.
I just can't stand the way he speaks. It's the same way that Obama does, where that he's performing for you. He's literally singing. He's doing this orator thing where he's doing all these pregnant pauses and the guy has obviously taken speech classes, but it's so false. The lies are in the math, and so when he speaks, it's just there's this ooze of slime that kind of pervades off of it. I can't listen to it.
He does kind of look like Grandpa Munster, doesn't he?
Now, remember the D.C. madam, I don't know what year it was, but she was killed in a murder-suicide, a very, very controversial suicide, because precisely she had this bombshell information. Now, we see her attorney saying that there's a gag order. He can't release the phone records that would be detrimental to the presidential campaign. Well, I'm searching now, and it looks like, this isn't confirmed yet, but it looks like Anonymous may have released some of those records. And apparently the D.C. madam's attorney is quoted as saying the election bombshell is already online. So maybe he's in fact corroborating that.
Yeah.
But there's phone records that highlight a Texas number. And of course, the implication is that is Ted Cruz. So I think there's a lot to say about that. And, God rest the D.C. madam's soul. You got to be careful. These people are heroes, essentially. It's a very selfless act to come out with all this information. And of course, she was killed as a result of it. So, I just want to tip my hat to all the whistleblowers.
Remember, Roger made a point when he was on our show the last time. He does not take his security lightly. He doesn't announce publicly where he's going to be. He has a security entourage. And he told Trump to have his private security people keep an eye on the Secret Service.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is the issue, is that, and unfortunately, if you look at the media right now, they're actually pushing forward. It's pretty insane. They're pushing forward videos of all these, crazy types that are calling for assassination of Trump. Imagine if that kind of stuff came out towards Obama or anyone else. You'd have Secret Service knocking on your door in about an hour, which people are having done. But with Trump, they're literally allowing T-shirts and all kinds of things to be made to try to get some crazy kook bag, to do it.
Look what they're doing with his plane that Aaron Dykes and Melissa Milton and True Stream Media broke a couple of weeks ago. It was a couple months ago with the engine problems.
We did on the radio show. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, we did. We broke it too.
Yeah.
Yes. And also they tried to set the fire in his one of his
the Chicago high rise.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, here's the thing. It would be great to think that maybe Trump might get through and maybe something might, happen and change. But unfortunately, I think that we probably have to prepare ourselves for the worst.
Especially since they're basically trying to force Kasich as his vice presidential choice, specifically George Soros. More information that Stone broke this week.
Well, Soros is funding Kasich to stay in the race, something like $200,000 at least.
$500,000. And
really?
the reason why they're keeping him in the race is so that Trump can't get to the 1237. So he can't say, no, I'm picking my own vice president. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to force him to take Kasich as a barter in order for Kasich to say, oh, okay, I'm going to have my delegates go to you, Trump.
Right.
And then it'll be like Reagan Bush all over again, where you have Trump will get compromised, and then Kasich will basically run the show for the next at least 4 years.
But that's why Jesse Ventura always jokes and says, take me on as VP, because no one will take Trump out because they wouldn't want to have Jesse Ventura for president, but I think he aligns a little more with Sanders, which is, that's a little lame. Yeah.
Well, maybe yes, maybe no, and he even hasn't ruled out a third-party run, which, here's the problem. If Hillary gets the nomination, unless it is what's his face, Bloomberg, any third party candidate will take votes away from Trump. That's just a Hillary presidency is just the scariest thing you can think of. And the fact is that she hasn't been indicted yet. Why hasn't Bill and Hillary, why aren't they wearing red jumpsuit or orange jumpsuits right now? Think about it. They have at least 80 people that we know of that are 6 feet under. Who knows how many other lives have been ruined? The fact that they claim that, she's not being indicted because half of Washington will be taken down with her. Well, so be it. If they've done crimes too, let everyone get indicted. Stop going after innocent people. Actually go after the real criminals that are destroying this country.
It's a big, giant fraud. And it's fun to talk about.
Yeah. And it's also, here's the thing is that I find that, it's important to become informed on all these topics, at least to a certain extent, so that you can make informed decisions, wise decisions, not only for yourself, your livelihood, your bank account, but for those that you love. I know that because of being an obsessive researcher that I am, Aspergitarians unite. That's why I moved from the West Coast and I came here is because I felt that Texas was a wise state to be in for this time, and I feel like it's been extremely refreshing to come here and to meet so many that are informed, who are ready, who are awake, and who are aware. And don't mess with Texas.
Texas is huge. The economy is one of the largest in the world.
Well, there's a lot of hidden debt, and the problem is a lot of the economy has actually been artificially propped up by state subsidies to companies like Apple, which don't need the money. Why are we giving taxpayer dollars to Apple, to Formula One, to these film subsidies when these companies have more than enough money than they know what to do with?
Can we have some subsidies?
Exactly.
Brave New Books does not accept subsidies, for the record.
But we accept sponsorship.
We'll
for the
take
show
your sponsorship money and promote your product, as long as we support you.
And we'll be back with the third hour of Be Brave Radio here on the Logos Radio Network after this short news break. Stick with us.